Hi, I'm Dina Nayeri. I am a writer and a former refugee. I escaped Iran with my family at 8 years old and spent a couple of years as a refugee in Dubai and Italy before arriving in the US, where we were granted asylum. I'm a writer now, and my recent book is called The Ungrateful Refugee, which was published this year.
I'm Anneke Elwes, and I'm the founder of HostNation, which is a refugee befriending service for adult refugees who find themselves socially isolated and lonely in London, and we connect them to Londoners. And I'm really delighted that Dina just recently was appointed to our board as a HostNation trustee.
It's nice to talk to you.
So Dina, we want to talk about refugee potential, and I think your stellar career as a prize-winning writer really shows that you did achieve your potential. And growing up as a refugee, what would you say were the key factors?
A lot of things that just come from the refugee experience. You've just lost everything. You want to prove to the world what you can do. You are not just someone that's defined by this one salvation, this one moment of miraculous escape. You're something else, and your story would have gone very differently had this whatever world tragedy you're escaping not happened.
We're here to talk about refugee potential, and what do you think that they can contribute to societies like ours?
Well, I think given the fact that refugees are made by random events, they're made by the fact that some big war happened or something, tragic happened in the world and they were displaced. It's important to recognize that actually from a statistical perspective, these are a random group of people, so there is among them people of all walks, there's among them professionals and service workers and craftsmen and artists and doctors and scholars and every kind of person. And so they can do literally everything people here can do. One more thing that they can bring that perhaps the native born don't have is this just urgent appreciation for having been given a second life and a desperation to remake and to show what they can do. And I think that can be an incredible asset. That can be something that drives you to incredible heights, to incredible acts of charity and goodwill, to incredible neighborly behavior. What they have is everything we have plus a drive the likes of which you haven't seen unless you've lived that life.
To what extent was it other people that help provide opportunity, or did you have to find the opportunities yourself?
I think it's always other people. No one does anything on their own. I think people who try to do things on their own, they find life a lot harder. I think it's just so visible when refugees need help, because there's this issue of dignity and shame involved. People are ashamed to have lost so much to ask for help. It's a different culture. It's really tough. But actually, native born people in communities ask each other for help every day. Every single person who ever made something of themselves has had the help of hundreds and thousands of people,
You're on the back foot, aren't you? Because you arrive in a country where you don't have those social networks and the social capital that so many take for granted, because we're kind of born into it. And that is part of the refugee experience, isn't it? You have to create opportunities.
You do. I think you have to, realize that, to some extent the onus is on you to go out there and to find your new community, to show the world who you are, to ask for friendship and to ask for help. But I think now there's a lot of fear of seeming like you're taking too much. And I think that what the refugees can do for themselves is to put that aside and to go and find all of the helpers, especially in a city like this. There are so many people who want to help. HostNation being one of them. I think this is why I so loved this organization. It made me, curious to ask you what your experience has been about what befriending can do to help people when they first arrive.
We were talking earlier about how refugees, when they leave their home, when they flee, they leave behind not only their family, but basically all the people that they know, their family, their friends, their social networks. And it's very hard, I think, to rebuild that when you come as a stranger to a new country. And so, what befriending, I guess, is trying to do is create some connections and help refugees and asylum seekers to maybe feel they have a little bit of social capital in a city which is unfamiliar, which they don't really know how to negotiate, which for a lot of people I think can seem quite overwhelming and quite unfriendly. And The thing about Londoners, and our befrienders are all Londoners, they're all London residents who are actually quite passionate about the city, is that Londoners tend to know the sort of inside track on how to kind of get the most out of London. They know that most of the best things in London are free. They're the ones who know that there are fantastic learning experiences to be had. There's amazing activities, festivals, things you can participate in. And they can help to give refugees and asylum seekers some kind of access to all of that. You know, we talk about it as London is a much friendlier city when you've got a Londoner by your side. I mean, we all know that the best way to learn a language is not by going to an ESOL class, but by having an English friend and someone who you can talk to. I just feel that there are so many refugees and asylum seekers who are living out in the margins of the city. They're really not coming in very much, partly because they can't afford to, partly because, I mean, they may know that some of our museums are free, but they're not going to go on their own because they lack the confidence to do that. So in a way it's like having somebody who really wants to sort of show you the best of London, and I think that that's a lot to do with helping people achieve their potential, because if people start to participate more, if their English improves, if they start feeling more confident about living in London, then that gives you a sense of well-being. I mean, I don't want to downplay the importance of kind of participating in the economy and improving your English, but it seems to me there's so much more to life than that.
Of course, yeah. No, you know, I think you're absolutely right, and I'm just thinking of all the times, you know, that I've seen refugees and people in my own family not truly take advantage of everything there is there for them just because they don't have the confidence. And to be able to borrow social capital and like native confidence from someone like that, that's wow, it goes way beyond your social life, I think.
Absolutely, and you know, it's amazing how many Londoners there are who've got real goodwill towards refugees and asylum seekers, and they really want to help, and they find it quite difficult to. So in a way, what we're trying to do at HostNation is provide a mechanic for these Londoners with goodwill to actually connect to refugees who are socially isolated, and yet they're still sociable, they're curious. You know, as you say, they're people with often drive and ambition, determination, huge potential. I
wish such a thing had existed when I was growing up. I mean, nobody was thinking along these lines. And I remember there's a story, a couple of months after we arrived, my mother was so very lonely. And you know, I was a kid, so we were just going around through our lives without really seeing that my mother was suffering from loneliness. But one day my mom came home and she was wearing a friendship bracelet, and I said, "Oh, what is that?" And she said, I found it in the park. It's a friendship bracelet from God. And I thought, I always remember that because it was just such a moment of where I realized how lonely she was. And I think there's so many people who would be helped by just having a friend in those first months.
Well, actually, you know, it's the words of some of our refugee friends that I just find incredibly heartwarming. One is someone who said, "It's made me feel human again."
Oh, yes.
And then there was somebody else quite recently who said, "It's brightened my life, it's given me hope and made me realise there's a future in London." It can be quite transformative if you feel that there is somebody there who really cares, somebody who perhaps might invite you into their home, and you know, somebody who you know, really is looking out for you. And I think that can just make a huge difference.
That's wonderful. Do you have pairs of, you know, friends and befrienders who are still, you know, after a long time, friends?
Absolutely. I mean, our very first friendship kind of match that we made, so nearly 2 years ago now, they are such firm friends.
Oh, good.
They spend Christmas together, they've been on holiday together, and her refugee friend is a huge part of her family's life.
Well, you know, I think maybe it's worth telling this audience, you are not overrun by refugees and you have plenty of befrienders still waiting.
We do, definitely. I mean, at any given time we've probably got over 100 befrienders who are waiting for a referral and, you know, asking us, when are you going to match me, and, you know, when am I going to have a kind of introduction to refugee friends. So yeah.
That's such a hopeful statistic, right? That there's so many Londoners waiting for, you know, their
to make this connection,
and
that's what we're there to try and kind of enable, is making these connections. Which, and I think from everything you've said as well, in terms of your refugee experience, that connections are just incredibly important.
Isn't that all there is in life?
They can make you feel human again.
Yes, exactly.